Starving widow inherits a Gothic lake house. The vampire lord inside offers her an impossible deal. The rain fell in steady, silver threads, drumming against the roof of the small carriage that creaked along the narrow, winding road. Eveline pressed her thin cloak closer around her shoulders, shivering, though the chill was not only from the cold. She had walked through grief for months, and hunger gnawed at her belly, sharper than any winter frost. The world had grown heavy and empty after her husband's death. Every day felt like trudging through mud, her life reduced to the bitter taste of survival. And then came the letter. A legal summons, delivered by a stiff-faced messenger, bearing news that she had inherited a property she had never seen. A mansion, they said, perched on the edge of Blackwater Lake, a house long abandoned, whispered about in the nearby villages and belonging once to a family whose name had vanished from memory. At first, Eveline had hesitated. She was cautious of promises and of luck that arrived unbidden. But when hunger forced her hand, she sold the last of her few belongings and set out, driven by curiosity and desperation. The carriage jolted as it climbed the final hill, and there it was, the manor. Even in the dim light of the storm, Eveline could see its towers piercing the dark clouds, windows like dark, watchful eyes, and the black water of the lake lapping hungrily at the edges of its stone foundation. The house seemed alive, and it watched her approach with quiet expectation. The driver muttered something under his breath, a warning she did not catch, and then the carriage stopped at the front gates. Eveline hesitated. The iron bars were twisted, their shapes curling like black ivy. She felt a flutter of unease, but curiosity outweighed fear. Taking a deep breath, she stepped out into the rain. The path to the house was lined with leafless trees, their branches clawing at the sky. Wet leaves stuck to her boots as she walked, and the wind carried a scent she could not name, a mixture of earth, decay, and something sweetly cold. Her heart thudded with a mix of fear and anticipation. The front doors were massive, made of dark wood and banded with iron. She pushed at the handles, and with a groan that echoed like a sigh, the doors opened. Inside, the house was vast and empty, with shadows that twisted along the walls and floors. The air was thick and smelled faintly of candle smoke and old stone. Eveline took a cautious step forward. The hall stretched out before her, lined with portraits of people whose eyes seemed almost too alive. Some faces were kind, some stern, some sad, but all watched her silently. Her fingers brushed against the carved wood banisters as she moved, and the house groaned around her, as if acknowledging her presence. She explored slowly, opening doors to rooms filled with dust and the remnants of a long-gone life. A broken chair, a faded rug, a grand fireplace lined with ash that had not seen fire for years. Her stomach growled. She had eaten nothing that day. The thought of warmth, of food, of safety made her heart ache with longing. Then she heard it, a voice, soft, measured like silk sliding over steel. "You've come at last." Eveline froze. Her eyes darted around the hall, searching for the source, but there was no one. The voice was deep, commanding, yet strange in its gentleness. "Who's there?" she asked, her voice trembling. From the shadowed staircase, a figure stepped into the light. Tall, slender, dressed in a coat of dark velvet that shimmered faintly. He regarded her with eyes that seemed too sharp, too knowing. His skin was pale, almost luminous in the dim light, and his expression was calm, yet there was something dangerous beneath it, a presence that demanded attention. "I am Kaelin," he said, "the master of this house, and you are its new keeper." Eveline swallowed hard. Her heart raced in her chest. Something about him made the hair on her arms rise. He moved like a shadow that had grown too large, filling the room without speaking more. "You've inherited this house," Kaelin continued, his gaze not leaving her face. "And with it, certain obligations." "What obligations?" Eveline asked, her voice barely above a whisper. Hunger, exhaustion, and fear collided in her chest, making it hard to breathe. Kaelin's lips curved into a small, enigmatic smile. You will see soon enough. For now, I offer you shelter, food, and safety. You will have all you need as long as you abide by the rules of this house." Evelyn hesitated. Something about his tone made her wary, yet she felt a strange pull, a curiosity she could not resist. Her body ached for warmth, for rest, for a place to belong. The house seemed to hum around her, a quiet invitation that whispered of comfort amidst shadows. I don't understand," she said, her voice shaking. "You will," Kalen replied. "In time you will understand everything. But know this, entering this house is a choice you cannot undo. Leave now and you are free. Stay and the house will change your life." Evelyn looked at him, at the shadows that seemed to cling to him like a cloak. Hunger gnawed at her, her hands trembled from cold, and her heart ached for warmth and safety. Slowly, almost reluctantly, she nodded. I will stay," she whispered. Kaelin's eyes softened, and for a moment Evelyn felt a strange sense of relief. "Good," he said. "Then let us begin." Over the next hours he showed her the house's main rooms. The dining hall, where a fire suddenly roared to life in the hearth, filling the air with warmth. The kitchen, stocked with food she could not have imagined. And the guest chambers with soft beds and thick blankets. It was a comfort unlike anything Evelyn had known in months. Yet even in this warmth, a tension lingered. Kaelin watched her constantly, his presence both reassuring and frightening. Every glance, every movement seemed deliberate, and she felt the weight of unspoken expectations pressing upon her. That night, Evelyn lay in bed, staring at the ceiling of her new room. The storm outside had quieted, leaving only the whisper of rain on the roof. She felt both terrified and strangely safe. The house was alive, and so was he, the strange, beautiful, frightening man who had offered her sanctuary. A knock came at the door. Hesitant, she called, "Who is it?" "It is I," Kaelin said. "Do not fear. I come only to see that you are comfortable." Evelyn opened the door. He stood there, tall and silent, and she noticed for the first time how his eyes glimmered in the candlelight. They were not just sharp, they were infinite, like the reflection of the lake in the moonlight. "You will sleep well," he said, "and tomorrow the true life of this house will begin. You will see that nothing here is as it seems, and that nothing is given freely." Evelyn nodded, swallowing the lump in her throat. Her heart raced, not from fear exactly, but from a strange mixture of awe and longing. She had survived the cruel world outside, only to step into a house that seemed alive, and a man who seemed more than human. As she closed the door behind him, she felt the house itself breathe, as if it were aware of her choice. Shadows stretched along the walls, and in the flickering candlelight, she thought she saw Kaelin's form in every corner, watching, waiting. She sank into the blankets, her mind swirling with questions she did not dare ask. What was the nature of this house? Who was Kaelin truly? And why did she feel, deep in her chest, that by entering this place, she had crossed a line from which there was no return? Sleep came slowly, and in the half-dreams that clung to her, she saw visions of the lake under the moonlight, its surface smooth and black as glass, reflecting a figure standing on the shore, tall, pale, and watching her. She woke with a shiver, not from cold, but from a deep, unnameable longing. Morning arrived, though muted by clouds and lingering mist. The house greeted her with soft light spilling through stained glass, painting the floor in colors that seemed both alive and melancholy. Kaelin awaited her in the dining hall, a calm figure in the midst of the sunless morning, his presence commanding yet serene. "You are awake," he said, his voice carrying the same weight as yesterday. "Good. Today you begin to understand. There is much to learn, Evelyn. Much you must see and more you must feel." Evelyn nodded, her hands clenched around the edge of her chair. She was afraid. She was hungry. She was alive, and yet she felt caught in the invisible threads of a destiny she could not yet comprehend. Kaelin's gaze held hers for a long moment, and she realized something undeniable. The house was no mere building, and he was no mere man. Both waited, patient, watching her every move, and both promised wonders and dangers she could not yet imagine. And as the first faint light of day broke across Blackwater Lake, Eveline understood with sudden clarity that her life had changed forever. The inheritance was not just of property. It was of something older, darker, and far more alive than she had ever known. The deal had begun. And with it, her journey into the heart of the house, and into the depths of a world she could not yet name, had begun as well. The morning mist hovered low over Blackwater Lake, curling like silver snakes around the edges of the Gothic mansion. Eveline stepped onto the balcony, her fingers tracing the cold stone railing. The lake was still, smooth as glass, reflecting the twisted towers of the house and the pale light of the rising sun. Her mind was restless. Last night had been filled with strange dreams, dreams of shadows moving with purpose, whispers in the halls, and the tall, pale figure of Kaelin standing silently at the edge of the water. She could not shake the feeling that the house was alive, that it watched her, and that it knew more about her than she herself did. Kaelin appeared at the top of the grand staircase, moving like a shadow gliding over marble. He wore the same dark velvet coat as yesterday, but in the light of morning his presence seemed even more commanding, more impossibly still. "You are awake early," he said, his voice soft yet carrying a weight that filled the room. "The house is restless, and so are you." "Do you feel it?" Eveline nodded slowly, shivering despite the growing warmth of the day. "Yes, I feel something," she admitted, "like the house is alive." Kaelin's eyes glimmered, a pale light in the dim hall. "It is, and it watches us both, but more than that, it tests us. It seeks those who belong to it." Eveline swallowed, unsure what that meant, yet she could not look away from him. There was a strange pull in his gaze, a magnetism that made her heart beat faster. She felt both cautious and drawn, as if stepping closer to him would unlock something hidden inside her. I don't know if I belong here," she whispered. Kaelin tilted his head, as though studying her like a painter observing a new canvas. "Belonging is not always about choice. Sometimes it is about awakening. The house and we will awaken what is inside you." Eveline shivered. She did not understand, but something in his words felt true. A warmth spread through her chest, different from the fire in the hearth. It was curiosity, yes, but also something deeper, something she could not name. He led her through the hallways, past doors she had not yet noticed. Each room was different, yet each held an air of secrets waiting to be discovered. One room contained towering bookshelves, filled with dusty volumes whose spines glimmered faintly in the morning light. Another had a mirror so large that her reflection seemed to move independently, as though the glass itself was alive. "This house is old," Kaelin explained. "Older than most people realize. Its walls remember everything, and its halls whisper truths that are difficult to hear. You must listen carefully, Eveline, for the house speaks in ways you may not yet understand." Eveline nodded, though her mind felt heavy with questions. "And you, what do you hear?" Kaelin's lips curved into the faintest smile. "I hear more than most. I have lived here longer than you can imagine. This house, it is part of me as much as I am part of it, and now you are too." They entered the library, a grand room with high ceilings and stained glass windows that painted the floor with shards of color. Kaelin gestured to a table where a small breakfast had been laid out, warm bread, fresh fruit, and a steaming pot of tea. Eveline's stomach tightened with gratitude, but she noticed his eyes lingering on her, observing every motion, every hesitation. "Eat," he said softly. "You must not let yourself weaken. Hunger dulls more than the body, it dulls the mind and the senses." Eveline obeyed, taking small bites. She felt the warmth of the food spread through her, and with it, a small measure of relief. Yet even as she ate, she could not ignore the sensation that she was being tested, that her every move was watched not only by Kaelin but by the house itself. After breakfast, Kaelin led her outside to a hidden garden that had somehow survived years of neglect. Night-blooming flowers leaned toward the sun, and the air carried a heady scent that made her dizzy. Some petals glimmered as if dusted with starlight, and the sound of water trickling from a small fountain filled the quiet space. "This garden," Evelyn said, her voice awed. "It feels magical." Kalen's gaze swept over her, faint amusement in his expression. "It is, but magic is not always gentle. It is alive like the house. It will test you as much as it delights you." Evelyn knelt to touch a flower, and the petals seemed to pulse under her fingertips, a soft heartbeat that made her gasp. Kalen's eyes followed her, and she felt a sudden awareness of him behind her, close yet restrained. "You have a gift," he said quietly. "You may not know it yet, but you feel the life around you in ways others cannot. This house, the lake, even I respond to it." Evelyn felt a shiver run down her spine. The idea of hidden abilities, of senses she had never noticed, was both thrilling and frightening. She wanted to ask more, to understand, but something in Kalen's gaze silenced her questions. Days passed in a rhythm both strange and comforting. Evelyn explored the house and its grounds, discovering secret corridors, small balconies overlooking the lake, and rooms filled with relics whose origins she could not name. Kalen guided her gently, teaching her the subtle signs of the house's moods: the flicker of a candle signaling curiosity, the soft groan of a floorboard indicating disapproval, the shimmer of a mirror when a secret was near. And yet, as she learned, she felt the tension between them growing. Every glance, every brush of his hand as he guided her, carried a weight she could not ignore. She was drawn to him, fascinated by his calm authority, yet wary of what that attraction meant. One evening, the house seemed to hum with a strange energy. The wind rose outside, bending the trees like dancers, and the lake reflected the storm clouds above. Evelyn stood by a window, watching the dark water churn, when Kalen appeared behind her. "You feel it too," he said softly. She turned, startled. "Feel what?" "The longing, the pull, the questions that will not leave you," he replied. His eyes seemed to glow faintly in the dim light, and she could not look away. "The house stirs more than usual tonight. It senses your curiosity, your courage, and your fear." Evelyn's voice was barely audible. I do not understand." "You will," he said, stepping closer. "All things here reveal themselves slowly, but you must learn to trust not only the house but yourself and me." A shiver ran through her. She knew she was being drawn into something beyond her comprehension, yet she could not step back. The storm outside seemed to mirror the storm within her, a mixture of fear, fascination, and longing. Suddenly, the wind swept through the room, and the candlelight flickered wildly. For a moment, the shadows seemed to stretch toward her, and Evelyn felt the house's presence press against her skin. She gasped, and Kalen's hand rested lightly on her shoulder. "You are ready," he said quietly, "ready to see more, ready to feel more. But be warned, the house shows no mercy to those who are unprepared." Evelyn nodded, trembling. "I am ready." Kalen led her down a hidden staircase she had never noticed before. It spiraled into darkness, the walls damp and lined with stone. At the bottom, a hidden chamber awaited, walls covered with strange symbols, a small pool of water glowing faintly in the center, and the air thick with an energy that made her hair stand on end. "This is the heart of the house," Kalen said. "Here, the truth of the world is reflected. Here you will feel the life that runs through everything, the lake, the walls, the air, even me." Evelyn approached the pool. The water shimmered with an inner light, and as she looked into it, she saw reflections not of herself, but of memories she had never lived, of places she had never been, of possibilities she could scarcely imagine. "This is not real," she whispered. Kalen's voice was behind her, low and calm. "It is real in ways you cannot yet comprehend. The house shows what is possible, what is hidden, and what is true. You must decide how you will face it." Evelyn's heart pounded. She felt fear, awe, and something darker, something like hope, trembling beneath the surface. She had never imagined life could hold such strange, vivid experiences. And yet, she felt that these visions were not simply illusions. They were warnings, invitations, and promises all at once. For a long moment she gazed into the water and Kaelin watched her silently. Then he spoke again. "Soon, Evelyn, you will understand the depth of your choice. To stay here, to embrace the house, is to embrace a life that is not like any other, and to leave is to forsake what you might become." Evelyn turned to him, her voice trembling. "And what will I become?" Kaelin's eyes softened, almost imperceptibly. "That depends on you." She shivered, both from the chill in the stone chamber and from the weight of his words. The pull between them was stronger now, magnetic, undeniable. She wanted to trust him, to understand him, yet she feared what surrendering to the house and its mysteries might cost her. The storm outside began to fade, and the first pale light of dawn crept into the chamber. Evelyn knew, with sudden clarity, that her life had entered a new and dangerous chapter. The house was no longer just a refuge. It was a teacher, a challenge, and perhaps even a captor. And Kaelin, he was neither friend nor foe, but something far more complicated, something she could not yet name. As she followed him back up the spiraling stairs, the chamber's glow fading behind her, she felt the stirrings of a destiny she could not yet control. The house had claimed her in ways subtle and undeniable, and Kaelin had opened a door to a world both terrifying and beautiful. And in the quiet moments before breakfast, as the lake reflected the growing light, Evelyn realized she could not turn back. She was already inside the story, and it would not let her go. The real test, she sensed, had only just begun. The days passed slowly in the mansion by Blackwater Lake, each one draped in mist and shadow. Evelyn had begun to understand the rhythms of the house. The way the walls seemed to hum when she entered a room, the subtle tremor of the floorboards when she walked, and the soft pulse of energy around the hidden corners. She had grown more confident in exploring its vast chambers and secret stairways, though a quiet unease lingered in her heart. Kaelin continued to guide her, teaching her to sense the life of the house. Under his watchful eyes, she discovered her ability to feel the subtle stirrings of spirits, the movement of energy, and the hidden echoes of the past. Each day, she felt herself growing stronger and more attuned, though she also felt the weight of the house pressing upon her. Yet one evening, the air of the mansion changed. Evelyn had been in the library, running her fingers along the spines of ancient books, when a cold wind swept through the hall. The candles flickered violently, and she heard a sound unlike the usual whispers of the house, a soft, mocking laugh that carried through the corridors. Evelyn's heart thudded. She knew immediately she was not alone. Kaelin appeared silently behind her, his presence calm but alert. "They are here," he said, his voice low. "Someone from my past has returned." Evelyn turned to him, eyes wide. A ghost," Kaelin shook his head. "No, something far more dangerous. Not a spirit, but a being like me, and they have come for the house and for you." Fear gripped Evelyn, but beneath it a spark of determination burned. She had come far, learned much, and felt the stirrings of power she had never known. She would not simply flee. Kaelin took her hand, guiding her to a hidden chamber beneath the main hall. The walls were lined with obsidian tiles, and a faint, cold light pulsed from a pool of water in the center. It was the heart of the house's defense, a place where the mansion itself gathered strength. "They will test you," Kaelin said. "Not only your courage, but your will. You must face them with clarity, and you must trust me, even when it is difficult." Evelyn nodded, though her chest tightened. She could feel her pulse quicken, the pool before her reflecting not only her face but the flicker of something darker, waiting beyond the walls. The first visitor appeared as a shadow at the edge of the chamber. Tall, sleek, with eyes that glimmered like liquid silver, the figure's presence was chilling. Evelyn felt a pull in her chest, a mixture of fear and fascination. This was no ordinary being. Its movements were precise, graceful, and dangerous. Kaelin stepped between them, his form a protective barrier. "You do not belong here," he said calmly, yet there was steel in his voice. The stranger laughed, a sound that rippled through the chamber. "Belonging is always a matter of choice, and she has something I want." Eveline's heart thudded. What do you want?" she asked, though her voice trembled. The being's eyes glimmered with amusement. "I want what she has: power, and perhaps a connection that binds her to him." Kalen's gaze hardened. "Leave, you will not harm her." "This house does not allow it." For a moment the chamber was silent. Then the stranger moved, swift and sudden, circling Eveline. She felt a shiver run through her, not entirely from fear. There was something captivating about the stranger's presence, a dark allure that made her chest tighten. "You are strong," the stranger said softly, almost gently. "Stronger than he believes, stronger than you yet know." Eveline felt confusion and a strange sense of awakening. She had begun to sense energy before, life in the house, the pulse of the lake, the quiet hum of magic, but now it surged through her. She realized that the stranger's presence was awakening something inside her, something she had not yet named. Kalen's hand pressed lightly on her shoulder. "Do not be swayed. They seek to tempt you, to draw you away from what is true. Focus. Control what you feel." Eveline closed her eyes, inhaling deeply. The pulse of the house beneath her feet resonated in her chest. The energy flowed through her, warm and steady. She opened her eyes and found that the stranger had halted, sensing her newfound strength. "You are not weak," the being said. "Perhaps we will meet again." With a flicker, the stranger disappeared, leaving only a ripple in the air and a chill that lingered in the room. Eveline shivered, her body trembling not from fear, but from the sudden surge of awareness she had felt. Kalen's gaze softened. "You did well. You faced something dangerous and you did not falter. That is not accidental. You are growing faster than I anticipated." Eveline's chest swelled with a mixture of pride and exhaustion. I felt it," she said. "The power. I could feel the house and everything around me." "I don't know what it is, but—" Kalen nodded, a faint smile touching his lips. "It is your gift, and it is only beginning to awaken. But gifts like this house must be handled with care. Strength without understanding can be dangerous." In the days that followed, Eveline noticed a change in herself. Her senses sharpened. She could hear the faintest shift of wind in the hallways, see the subtle shimmer of energy that traced the paths of the house, and feel the presence of the lake even when she was deep inside the chambers. Kalen began to teach her more deliberately, guiding her through exercises to hone her abilities. They spent hours in the library, tracing the patterns of ancient symbols, practicing the subtle ways of listening to the pulse of the house, and learning to control the energy that flowed through the hidden corridors. And yet, even as her power grew, so did the tension between them. Every interaction was filled with unspoken questions, fleeting touches, and glances that lingered just a moment too long. Eveline felt drawn to him, fascinated by his knowledge, his calm authority, and the strange, quiet loneliness she sensed beneath his perfect composure. One evening, Kalen led her to a balcony overlooking the lake. The water was black and smooth, reflecting the first stars of night. He stood silently beside her, and for a long moment they simply watched. "You are changing," he said softly, "and I must change as well. The house, it responds to both of us. And it sees the truth in what we feel." Eveline's voice trembled. "What truth?" Kalen turned to her, his eyes reflecting the moonlight. "That we are not merely master and visitor, that we are entwined in ways neither of us can fully name." Her heart skipped. She had felt the pull between them before, subtle and dangerous, but now his words gave it shape. A mixture of fear and longing rose within her, and she struggled to steady herself. "The house, it wants you to see it, to feel it, to trust it," he continued. "But it also tests the heart, and the heart is never simple." Eveline's gaze dropped to the lake below. "And what of us?" she whispered. Kalen's hand brushed hers almost imperceptibly. "We are learning, and learning can be dangerous." A sudden chill swept through the balcony. The air seemed to thrum with tension, and Evelyn felt a ripple of unease. Something had changed. From the edge of her vision, she saw a shadow move across the water, swift and purposeful. "The one who came before, they are returning," Kalen said quietly, his voice tense. "And this time they will not leave so easily." Evelyn's pulse quickened. "Will they hurt us?" Kalen shook his head. "They cannot harm you, not while you trust the house and me. But the choice you make, the strength you wield, will decide how this ends. You are no longer just a visitor, Evelyn. You are part of something much larger and much older." The wind whipped around them, tugging at her hair and cloak. The reflection of the shadow on the lake seemed to writhe as though alive. Evelyn felt the surge of energy from the house beneath her feet, steady and strong. She realized that she could no longer be frightened or passive. She had to act, to trust herself, and to face what was coming with courage. I will not be afraid," she whispered, though her voice wavered. Kalen's eyes softened. "Good, courage will serve you well, and soon you will see that fear is only the beginning of understanding, not the end." As they turned to go back inside, Evelyn felt a deep awareness settle over her. The rival's return was inevitable, but now she sensed that she was no longer powerless. The house had chosen her, Kalen had guided her, and the gift within her had begun to awaken. The shadow on the lake had not vanished. It lingered, a silent promise that the coming days would test not only her strength, but the bond between her and Kalen. And in that moment, Evelyn knew with certainty. The story of the house, the lake, and the tall, pale man who had claimed her curiosity was far from over. The real challenge had only begun. The morning fog clung to Blackwater Lake like a silver veil, softening the edges of the mansion's towering spires. Evelyn stood on the balcony, her hands resting lightly on the cold stone railing. She could see the lake stretching endlessly, black and calm beneath the pale light, and she felt a weight in her chest, a mixture of anticipation and dread. The rival from Kalen's past had returned. Evelyn could sense it in every pulse of energy that vibrated through the house, in the subtle stir of wind through the corridors, and in the low, steady heartbeat of the lake itself. She had trained for this moment, had grown stronger and more aware of the house's rhythms, yet she knew the trial ahead would test more than her abilities. It would test her courage, her trust, and her heart. Kalen appeared beside her silently, his presence steady and calm. His pale eyes reflected the morning light, though there was a tension there she had not seen before. He spoke softly, almost as if sharing a secret. "Today, Evelyn, we face the truth," he said. "Not only of the house, not only of the lake, but of ourselves. You have grown, and so have I, but the final step, the step that frees or binds us, is upon us now." Evelyn nodded, swallowing hard. Her chest was tight with anticipation. I am ready," she whispered, though a part of her quivered with doubt. Kalen's hand brushed hers lightly, a gesture both comforting and charged with unspoken meaning. "Courage is not the absence of fear," he said, "but the willingness to face it. Remember that." The chamber beneath the house had been prepared. The obsidian tiles glimmered faintly, the pool at the center glowing with a soft inner light. Symbols etched into the walls hummed with energy, their meanings clear only to those attuned to the house's magic. Evelyn felt the pulse of life beneath her feet, strong and alive, and knew that this room would decide the fate of them both. "You must face them together," Kalen said, his gaze meeting hers. "The one from my past, the curse, all of it. We cannot succeed alone. Trust is the key, trust and choice." Evelyn drew a deep breath. "I trust you," she said, and she meant it. She had come to understand him not only as a guide but as something far more intricate, a companion in the journey of shadows and light. The chamber's air shifted. A figure emerged from the edges of the glow, a tall, sleek presence, eyes like silver fire, radiating authority and danger. Evelyn's pulse quickened, yet she felt steadier than before. The rival moved with elegance, circling them slowly. "You think you can claim her," the rival said, voice low and mesmerizing. "Do you understand what you hold? Do you know what it truly means? Kalen stepped forward, his voice calm but unwavering. It is not for you to claim. This house and she are bound to the choice of their own hearts. Evelyn felt the energy of the house surge beneath her feet. The pool in the center rippled, sending light spiraling across the walls. She could feel the pulse of the lake, the power of the mansion, and the echo of the rival's energy. It was overwhelming, yet exhilarating. "You are stronger than I expected," the rival said, a trace of admiration in their voice. "Perhaps more than either of you realize." Kalen's gaze met hers, and Evelyn understood without words. This was the moment they had prepared for. She had to face the fear, the temptation, and the unknown while holding the trust they had built. She stepped forward, focusing on the pulse beneath her feet. Her senses expanded, feeling the life that flowed through the house, the lake, and even Kalen himself. The energy of the chamber responded, glowing brighter, forming a bridge of light between them. The rival hesitated, sensing the bond they shared. "You cannot control her," the rival said, frustration creeping into their voice. "You cannot bind what is not yours." Evelyn's voice rang clear, steady, and strong. "I am not yours. I choose who I trust and who I follow. This house, this life, it is mine to face." The rival's form flickered, as if the words themselves had power. Kalen's hand found hers, their fingers entwining, and the energy between them surged stronger. It was no longer fear or uncertainty. It was connection, trust, and the acknowledgement of what they had become together. "You have done well," Kalen said softly, his voice a comfort and a beacon. "Now we finish this." The rival's form twisted, then slowly dissipated into the shadows, leaving behind only a lingering sense of power unclaimed. The chamber fell silent, but the glow of the pool remained, pulsing gently, as if the house itself were exhaling. Evelyn felt the tension drain from her shoulders, replaced by a profound sense of relief and awakening. Kalen released her hand, but the connection lingered in the space between them. "The curse," he began, his voice quiet, "has lasted centuries. It bound me, made me patient, made me distant, until you arrived. You awakened more than your own power, you awakened me. And now," he stepped closer, and Evelyn felt the warmth of his presence fill the room. "Now it can be broken." The pool's glow brightened, swirling around them, and Evelyn felt a wave of energy that both frightened and thrilled her. The curse that had bound Kalen, that had haunted the house and the lake for so long, was dissolving. And with it, a new light filled the chamber, one that promised freedom, trust, and renewal. Kalen's eyes softened, and for the first time, Evelyn saw the man beneath the centuries of solitude, a man capable of emotion, connection, and vulnerability. She realized how deeply she had come to care for him, how much she had grown in strength, courage, and understanding. "Evelyn," he said, his voice breaking slightly with emotion, "I am free because of you, and yet it is more than freedom. It is a choice, our choice. Are you ready to walk this path with me?" Tears blurred Evelyn's vision, not from sadness, but from a release she had not known was possible. She had faced fear, temptation, and uncertainty. She had learned to trust herself and him. And now, standing in the heart of the house, she understood that her journey had led her here, not just to power, but to love, connection, and transformation. "I am ready," she whispered, her voice firm, yet soft with emotion. "With you." Kalen's hand found hers again, their fingers entwining with a perfect fit. The pool's light enveloped them, wrapping around their forms like a protective embrace. The house itself seemed to breathe, shadows and light dancing across the walls in celebration of the moment. Together they stepped forward, and the energy of the house responded, guiding them, acknowledging their choice. Evelyn felt the bond deepen, not just between herself and Kalen, but with the mansion, the lake, and the legacy they were now a part of. "The house, the lake, everything," Kalen murmured. "It is alive, and it acknowledges what we have done. We have faced it and ourselves, and now we are free to live as we choose." Evelyn smiled, a smile that had been rare in the months of grief and uncertainty. She felt light, alive, and capable of embracing whatever came next. The shadows of fear and doubt had passed, leaving only clarity, trust, and the quiet strength that comes from facing the unknown. They walked together to the balcony, overlooking Blackwater Lake. The mist had lifted, revealing the water calm and shining beneath the morning sun. Light glimmered across the surface, reflecting their forms intertwined, and Evelyn felt a deep peace settle in her heart. "Do you feel it?" Kalen asked, his voice soft. "The calm, the balance." Evelyn nodded, squeezing his hand. "Yes, it feels right, finally." He smiled, faint but genuine, a reflection of the freedom they had both earned. "This is the beginning," he said, "not the end. The house, the lake, the life we choose, it is all ours now." Evelyn's gaze followed the sunlight on the lake, thinking of the journey that had led her here, the loss, the hunger, the fear, and the awakening of her own power. She had faced darkness and temptation, discovered courage she had never imagined, and learned to trust not only herself but another. "And what of the past?" she asked softly. Kalen's eyes reflected the lake, calm and infinite. "The past is memory, not a chain. It shapes us, yes, but it does not bind us. We decide our own path together." Evelyn leaned closer, resting her head against his shoulder. For the first time in many months, she felt truly at home, not just in the house, but in a life that she had chosen, with someone she had come to trust and care for deeply. The wind carried a gentle song across the lake, as if the mansion itself were singing, celebrating the bond that had been forged in shadows, strengthened by courage and freed by trust. And as the sunlight reflected off the water, Evelyn knew, with a quiet certainty, that she and Kalen had entered a new life, one filled with wonder, challenge, and the kind of connection that only comes from facing the deepest darkness together and emerging into light. The mansion was alive, the lake was alive, and so were they, stronger, freer, and bound together by choice, trust, and the enduring power of love that was never forced, only embraced. For the first time, Evelyn smiled fully, knowing she had not only inherited a house, but a life, a purpose, and a love that would guide her through the days and nights to come. The story of the house, the lake, and the vampire lord who had once been trapped by centuries of solitude had reached its turning point. And now, the future stretched before them, vast, mysterious, and bright, with the promise of life reclaimed and love embraced. Evelyn breathed deeply, savoring the calm, the light, and the knowledge that she had chosen courage over fear, trust over doubt, and connection over isolation. The mansion had tested them, the lake had observed them, and the shadows had watched. And yet in the end, they had emerged together, whole, free, and ready for whatever lay ahead. The dawn over Blackwater Lake shone brightly, a new chapter unfolding with every glimmer of sunlight across the water. And in that quiet, magical morning, Evelyn and Kalen understood the profound truth that freedom, love, and transformation are gifts born not of power alone, but of trust, courage, and the choice to face the darkness together. The house, at last, rested in peace. And so did their hearts,